I woke up to an unbearable heaviness in my body, as if I were submerged in thick, unmoving water. My eyelids felt glued together, and it took an enormous effort just to peel them open. The bright, artificial light of the hospital room stabbed into my retinas, making me wince. A slow, rhythmic beeping echoed in the sterile silence, and when I turned my head slightly, pain shot through my skull like a lightning bolt. My throat was dry, my lips cracked. I tried to speak, but only a weak rasp came out. Panic settled in as I took in my surroundings. Wires ran from my arms to machines that hummed softly beside me. A dull ache throbbed in every inch of my body. My legs, my ribs, even my fingertips felt foreign, as though they weren't truly mine anymore. Where was I? What had happened to me? My mind was a foggy abyss. The last thing I could clearly remember was driving home after a long day at work. I had been exhausted, barely keeping my eyes open behind the wheel, but I was determined to surprise Daniel, my husband, with dinner. It was a small gesture, but after weeks of feeling distant from him, I wanted to do something to reconnect. But then, nothing. A blank space. A missing gap in time that made my skin crawl. How long had I been here? Had anyone been looking for me? Had Daniel? Summoning the last of my strength, I parted my lips again, forcing out a whisper. Daniel. The sound barely made it past my lips, but the nurse sitting nearby heard me. She turned immediately, a sympathetic look crossing her face. Mrs. Carter, she said softly, standing to adjust something on the machine beside me. You're awake. That's wonderful news. My heart pounded. Wake. Had I been asleep? My body felt like it had been through a war, but I had no memory of how I had ended up like this. It happened? I croaked, my voice weak and unfamiliar. The nurse hesitated. You were in an accident. A severe one. You've been in a coma for 2 weeks. The words hit me like a truck. 2 weeks. I blinked, trying to process the information. I had been unconscious for half a month. The idea was terrifying, but a more pressing thought filled my mind. My husband. My voice was hoarse, but the desperation in my tone was unmistakable. Has Daniel been here? There was a brief pause, just long enough for dread to creep in. The nurse's lips pressed together before she finally answered. He visited for the first few days, but he hasn't been back in over a week. A sharp pain bloomed in my chest, and this time it had nothing to do with my injuries. The room blurred as my vision swam with unshed tears. Daniel hadn't come back? 1,000 possibilities ran through my mind, each one worse than the last. Maybe he thought I wasn't going to wake up. Maybe seeing me like this had been too painful for him. Maybe he didn't care. I refused to believe that. He was my husband. The man who had held me when I cried, who had kissed me in the rain, who had once sworn to love me through sickness and health. He wouldn't just leave me. A suffocating feeling wrapped around my chest as I reached weakly for my phone on the bedside table. The nurse hesitated before handing it to me. My fingers trembled as I unlocked the screen, a flurry of messages popping up, dozens of missed calls and texts, but none from Daniel. My heart pounded as I scrolled, searching for his name, hoping to find some sign that he had been worried about me. But there was nothing. Instead, my screen was flooded with messages from Sophie, my best friend. The most recent one, sent just hours ago, sent an icy chill down my spine. Call me as soon as you wake up. It's important. A lump formed in my throat. Something was wrong. I could feel it deep in my bones. My hands were shaky as I pressed the call button. Sophie picked up on the first ring. Emma, she breathed, her voice thick with emotion. Oh my God. You're awake. Sophie, my voice cracked, my exhaustion catching up with me. What's going on? Where's Daniel? There was a long silence on the other end. I could hear her breathing, hear the hesitation in the way she struggled to find the right words. And then, Emma, there's something you need to know about Daniel. A cold dread settled in my stomach. I already knew. Even before she said it, even before she confirmed my worst fear, I knew. He's been living with another woman, Sophie finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. He moved in with her a week after your accident. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My breath came in sharp, ragged gasps. No, it couldn't be true. It wasn't possible. Daniel wouldn't do that to me. Not when I had been lying in a hospital bed, broken and helpless. Not after everything we had been through. But deep down I knew the truth. The signs had been there long before the accident. The late nights at work, the mysterious phone calls, The way he had stopped looking at me like I was the love of his life. I had ignored it, convinced myself that I was imagining things, that I was just being insecure. Now I had the proof. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. He had left me. He hadn't even waited to see if I would survive before moving on. He had replaced me like I was nothing more than a broken object, discarded when it no longer served its purpose. I wanted to scream, to cry, to crumble under the weight of my heartbreak. But instead something else took root inside me. A slow-burning fire. A silent, unyielding rage. I would recover. I would rise from this. And when I did, I would make him regret ever choosing her over me. The weight of Sophie's words crushed me. I felt like I was suffocating, drowning in a sea of betrayal that I never saw coming. Daniel was with another woman. He hadn't just abandoned me in a hospital bed. He had replaced me entirely, erasing me from his life like I was nothing more than an inconvenience. The worst part, he had done it so quickly. A week after my accident, while I was still unconscious, fighting to wake up, he had already moved in with her. Tears burned my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had wasted years loving a man who had discarded me without hesitation. I wouldn't waste another second crying over him. Emma? Sophie's voice was gentle but laced with concern. Are you okay? Do you want me to come to the hospital? I swallowed the lump in my throat and took a slow, steadying breath. No, I said, though my voice wavered. I'll be okay. Sophie hesitated. I know you, Emma. And I know you're trying to act strong right now, but this is huge. I don't want you to go through this alone. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to push past the emotions threatening to consume me. Alone. That word hit hard. Daniel had made sure of that, hadn't he? He had abandoned me in every sense of the word. But I wouldn't let his betrayal define me. I just need time, I murmured. I need to think. The moment we hung up, exhaustion took over. My body felt like it had been through a war, because it had. Not just physically but emotionally. I wasn't just healing from the accident anymore. I was healing from the deepest betrayal of my life. The next few days in the hospital were agonizing, but not just because of the physical pain. Every time I closed my eyes, I imagined Daniel with her. Was she someone I knew? Had he loved her before I even got hurt? Had he been planning to leave me all along? The questions haunted me, but I forced myself to focus on one thing: getting better. Every time the doctors asked me to push through the pain, I did. Every time I had to sit up despite the sharp sting in my ribs, I gritted my teeth and did it anyway. When they told me I'd need months of therapy to regain full mobility, I told them I'd do it in half that time. Because this wasn't just about healing. It was about revenge. I wasn't the type to seek vengeance in the traditional sense. I didn't want to beg Daniel to come back or scream at him for what he had done. I wanted to make him regret it. I wanted to rebuild myself so completely that he wouldn't even recognize the woman he had left behind. My first step: getting out of the hospital. On the day of my discharge, Sophie arrived to pick me up. She was dressed in her usual effortlessly stylish way: dark jeans, a leather jacket, and sunglasses that made her look like she belonged on a magazine cover. When she saw me in the wheelchair, she let out a sharp breath. Damn, Emma. You really went through it, huh? I let out a dry laugh. You could say that. She crouched down in front of me, her expression serious. Listen, I know you don't want to talk about Daniel yet, but when you're ready, I'm here. And if you want to make him pay, I'm here for that too. A slow, small smile curled on my lips. Oh, he's going to pay, I murmured. But not in the way he expects. Sophie's grin was wicked. That's my girl. As she wheeled me out of the hospital, the cold autumn air hit my skin, and for the first time in weeks I felt truly awake. This wasn't just the end of my hospital stay. This was the beginning of something new. Daniel thought he had left me broken. But he had no idea what was coming next. The first few weeks after leaving the hospital were brutal. My body was weak, my movements stiff, and every step felt like dragging dead weight. But I refused to wallow. Pain was temporary. Betrayal, however, left a permanent scar, and I was going to make sure that mine wasn't just a reminder of what I had lost. It was going to fuel me into becoming someone stronger. Someone unstoppable. Sophie, true to her word, was by my side every step of the way. She moved me into her apartment, refusing to let me be alone in my old place. The place where Daniel had once whispered promises that now felt like cruel jokes. I'm not going to let you sit in that house and torture yourself, Emma, she had said firmly, dragging my suitcase into her spare bedroom. You need a fresh start, and it begins here. At first I didn't argue. I was too exhausted, too consumed with the burning ache in my chest to fight her on it. But the longer I stayed, the more I realized she was right. I needed a fresh start. And it began with rebuilding myself from the ground up. I threw myself into physical therapy with a ferocity that surprised even my doctors. Every session was torture. My muscles screamed, my bones ached, and every day felt like an uphill battle. But I refused to give up. Each time I lifted myself 1 inch higher, each time I took an extra step, I imagined Daniel watching from a distance, seeing me rise from the ashes of what he had left behind. Sophie, ever the fierce protector, didn't let me sulk for long. She made sure I ate, made sure I didn't spiral into self-destruction, and, most importantly, she made me laugh. Even when I didn't want to. You know, she said one evening as we sat on her balcony, a glass of wine in her hand, the best revenge isn't screaming at him or keying his car. It's glowing up so hard that he drowns in his own regret. I smirked. So what? You're saying I need a hotter-than-ever transformation? He grinned. Oh babe. I'm saying we burn his world to the ground just by existing. And just like that, the mission was clear. Step 1, get stronger. I kept up my physical therapy, doubling my efforts. Every time my legs trembled from exhaustion, I reminded myself, I will not be a victim. Step 2, reinvent myself. I cut my hair, changed my style, and updated my entire wardrobe with clothes that screamed confidence rather than comfort. Sophie dragged me to the salon, where she made the stylist chop off my damaged shoulder-length hair into a sleek chin-length bob. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Step 3, reclaim my independence. I refused to let the accident or Daniel define me. I found a new job, one that didn't remind me of all the years I had spent supporting a man who never deserved it. It wasn't easy, but every step forward felt like a middle finger to the past. And then came the unexpected encounter. It happened at a coffee shop a few blocks from Sophie's apartment. I had been feeling stronger that morning and decided to walk there myself. A small victory in my ongoing recovery. As I stood in line, scrolling through my phone, I heard a deep, familiar voice behind me. Emma? My heart lurched. Not him. Please not him. I turned slowly, my body going rigid, and there he was, Daniel. For a split second, I felt the old pain rise, the ghost of what we had. But then I really saw him. He didn't look the same. His hair was disheveled, his usual crisp suit slightly wrinkled. There was an unease in his eyes, a flicker of something I couldn't quite place. He wasn't the confident, put-together man I once loved. He looked lost. Emma, he said again, softer this time, like he couldn't believe I was standing in front of him. I didn't know you were out of the hospital. I lifted my chin. I figured as much. His jaw tightened, and for the first time I saw guilt in his expression. Good. Let him feel it. How are you? He asked, his voice laced with something that almost sounded like regret. I smiled. Not the broken, fragile smile he was probably expecting, but a real, confident one. I'm better than ever. And I meant it. This was just the beginning. Walking away from Daniel that day at the coffee shop felt like stepping into a new version of myself. One that wasn't weighed down by heartbreak, one that didn't crave his validation. For the first time since my accident, I wasn't the one left behind. I was the one walking away. But the encounter sparked something unexpected. He started reaching out. At first, it was subtle, likes on my social media posts, a comment here and there. Then the text started. Hey, can we talk? I know I messed up, Emma. Please just hear me out. I ignored every single one. Sophie, of course, was thrilled. Oh my God, she laughed one evening as we lounged in her apartment drinking wine. He's spiraling. I bet his new toy isn't as perfect as he thought she'd be. I smirked, swirling the wine in my glass. Let him suffer. He made his choice. And yet part of me was curious. Not because I wanted him back. God no. But because I wanted to see just how much he regretted choosing someone else over me. I wanted him to look at me and realize he had thrown away the best thing in his life. So when I accidentally ran into him again at a mutual friends gathering, I decided to have a little fun. The second I walked in, his eyes were on me. I could feel them tracing every inch of the woman he had abandoned. I had dressed with intention, form-fitting black dress, red lips, a confidence that radiated through every step I took. I wasn't just healed. I was reborn. He approached cautiously, almost like he wasn't sure he was allowed to. "Emma," he breathed, his eyes searching mine. "You look amazing." I took a slow sip of my wine, arching a brow. "I know." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "Can we talk?" I tilted my head, feigning thoughtfulness. "Oh, I don't know. It's been a while. You seemed pretty occupied with, what's her name again?" His face darkened, and that's when I knew. It wasn't working out with her. "Good. Emma, please," he sighed. I made a mistake." I let out a soft laugh, shaking my head. "No, Daniel. You made a choice. A very clear one. And I lived with the consequences of it. Now you get to do the same." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident. "I was scared. You were in a coma and I didn't know if you'd wake up, and she was there. But there was the classic I was weak excuse." I met his gaze, my expression unyielding. "So instead of staying by my side, you ran straight into someone else's bed? If that's what you do when things get tough, I really dodged a bullet." He looked like I had slapped him. For a second I almost pitied him. Almost. But then I remembered the months I had spent crying, the loneliness of waking up to an empty hospital room, the way he had erased me from his life as if I had never mattered. Oh, he didn't deserve my pity. "I miss you, Emma," he said, his voice raw. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." I leaned in slightly, just enough to make his breath hitch. Then with a smirk I whispered, "I know." Then I turned and walked away, leaving him standing there, drowning in his own regret. After that night something in me shifted. I was finally free. Free from the weight of Daniel's betrayal. Free from the self-doubt that had whispered lies into my ear for months. I had thought that seeing him grovel would bring me closure, but in reality the closure came from realizing I no longer cared. And with that realization came something I hadn't expected. A readiness to move on. It started small. Flirting. Sophie, ever the instigator, had practically thrown me back into the dating pool. "Enough with the revenge arc," she had said one evening, tossing my phone onto my lap with a dating app open. "Time for the glow-up arc. You don't just heal, you thrive." I had rolled my eyes but played along, swiping half-heartedly through profiles. I wasn't looking for anything serious. I just wanted to feel wanted again. To remind myself that I was still desirable, still capable of something beyond heartbreak. And then I met him. It wasn't through an app. It wasn't some grand, cinematic moment where our eyes met across a crowded room. Oh, it was something simple. Panic. It happened at the gym. I had pushed myself hard that day, determined to regain my full strength. My legs no longer felt like they belonged to a stranger, and each weight I lifted was a silent victory. That's when I noticed him, Noah. Tall, effortlessly fit, with warm brown eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled. He had been using the equipment next to me, and at some point we both reached for the same dumbbell at the same time. "Sorry," I said quickly, pulling my hand back. "No, go ahead," he replied smoothly, stepping back. His voice was deep, but not in an intimidating way. It had a warmth to it, like someone who knew how to laugh even when life got tough. I smirked. "What, afraid I'll outlift you?" He chuckled. "Hey, if I see you bench more than me, I'll be impressed, not offended." I had laughed genuinely, and something inside me clicked. Over the next few weeks we kept running into each other. A quick nod here, a passing joke there. Then one day he offered to spot me, and before I knew it we were having full conversations between sets. I learned that he was a physical therapist, which explained why he was so comfortable in a gym. "You work with people recovering from injuries?" I had asked, arching a brow. He nodded. "Yeah. I help people regain their strength after accidents or surgeries. A lot of them come in feeling like they've lost control over their own bodies, and my job is to help them get it back." Something about that hit deep. I didn't tell him right away about my own recovery, but as we talked more, I realized that Noah wasn't just easy to be around, he was different. He didn't talk to me like I was fragile. He didn't look at me with pity. He saw me. The real me. One evening, after another gym session, he wiped his forehead with a towel and shot me a grin. "All right, Emma, I have to ask, do you ever do anything other than train like a warrior?" I laughed. "Wouldn't you like to know?" His smile widened. "I would actually. Dinner this Friday?" I hadn't been on a real date since Daniel. The thought of it had always felt impossible. But as I looked at Noah, at his kind eyes, his easy confidence, I realized that for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel scary. It felt exciting. So I took a deep breath, met his gaze and said, I'd love to. Friday night arrived faster than I expected, and with it came a wave of nervous excitement I hadn't felt in years. A first date. A real, genuine first date. Not with someone familiar, not with someone from my past, but with someone new. Someone who saw me as I was now, not as the broken woman Daniel left behind. Sophie, ever the enthusiastic best friend, was practically bouncing with energy as she helped me get ready. I still can't believe it, she said, curling the last strand of my hair. Emma Carter is going on a date. With a ridiculously hot physical therapist, no less. I rolled my eyes. It's just dinner. She smirked. Dinner with a guy who has been flirting with you at the gym for weeks. Oh please. This is the beginning of your soft girl era. I laughed, shaking my head. But deep down I knew this was more than just dinner. It was my first step into something new, something terrifying but also exhilarating. When Noah arrived to pick me up, I almost lost my breath. He wasn't dressed in his usual gym attire, but in a dark blue button-up and fitted jeans that made him look effortlessly handsome. And when he saw me, his eyes widened slightly before he smiled. Wow, he said, exhaling. You look incredible. A warmth spread through my chest. It had been a long time since someone looked at me like that. The restaurant he chose was intimate but lively, the kind of place that had a cozy warmth to it. Over dinner, the conversation flowed easily and I found myself laughing more than I had in months. Noah had an energy that was magnetic, confident but not overbearing, playful but genuine. And most of all, he listened. Not just the polite kind of listening, but the kind that made you feel seen. So tell me something, he said, resting his chin on his hand. What's one thing you've always wanted to do but never had the chance to? I blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever asked me that before. Not even Daniel. I thought for a moment before saying, travel alone. Just pack my bags and go somewhere new, without having to think about anyone else's schedule or plans. He tilted his head. So why haven't you? I hesitated. Because I had spent years prioritizing someone else's life over my own. Because I had been the kind of woman who always compromised, always put others first. Because I was waiting for the right moment, I finally said. But I think I'm done waiting. A slow smile spread across his face. Good. You shouldn't have to. There was something in the way he said it that made my chest tighten. Not with fear but with something dangerously close to hope. After dinner, we walked along the riverfront, the cool evening air wrapping around us. At one point he paused and turned to me. Can I ask you something? I nodded. Have you been hurt before? His voice was careful, gentle. I swallowed, feeling the familiar sting of old wounds. Yes. He didn't ask for details. He didn't push. Instead he simply said, whoever hurt you, he was an idiot. A soft laugh escaped me. You don't even know the story. I don't have to, he said, meeting my gaze. A man who lets go of someone like you? That tells me everything I need to know. And for the first time since Daniel shattered me, I felt something new begin to grow. Something fragile. Something terrifying. But above all else, something real. And as Noah reached for my hand, threading his fingers through mine, I realized that maybe, just maybe, I was ready for this. The weeks that followed my first date with Noah were unlike anything I had experienced before. There was no rush, no pressure, no mind games. Just two people enjoying each other's company. We went on more dates. Coffee runs that turned into deep conversations, gym sessions that were more about teasing each other than actually working out, late-night phone calls that made me laugh until my stomach hurt. And yet, despite how good it felt, a part of me hesitated. Some nights, when I was alone, the past would creep in like a shadow at my doorstep. Daniel. The betrayal. The accident. It wasn't that I missed him, I didn't. But the scars he left ran deeper than I wanted to admit. Could I really trust again? Could I really open myself up to something new? Sophie saw the hesitation before I even said a word. One night, as we lounged in the living room, she sighed and turned to me. Hey Spill. What's going on in that overthinking brain of yours? I toyed with the hem of my sweater. Just, Noah. He's great. Really great. And that scares me. She arched a brow. Because. I exhaled. Because what if I get hurt again? What if I open up and it all falls apart like last time? Sophie was silent for a moment before she said, let me ask you something. Was it Daniel who hurt you or was it love? I frowned. What? She leaned forward. You're scared of love, Emma. But love didn't betray you, Daniel did. He was the one who made the choice to leave. He was the one who didn't deserve you. But that doesn't mean Noah will do the same. I stared at her, letting her words sink in. He was right. I had spent so long associating love with pain that I forgot what it was supposed to feel like. Love wasn't supposed to be full of doubt and anxiety. Love wasn't supposed to make me feel small and unwanted. Noah wasn't Daniel. That realization hit me hard. And then, as if the universe was determined to test me, Daniel came back into my life. It happened on a rainy afternoon when I least expected it. I had just finished a session at the gym when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Daniel. Hey Emma. I know I'm the last person you want to hear from, but I need to talk to you. Please. My heart didn't race. My stomach didn't drop. I felt nothing. I stared at the message for a long moment before showing it to Sophie. She snorted. And here he comes. The man, the myth, the walking disaster. I smirked. You think I should respond? She leaned back, swirling her coffee. Depends. Do you want to hear whatever pathetic excuse he's about to offer? Or do you just want to leave him in the past where he belongs? I thought about it. I had spent months rebuilding myself. Letting go of the pain, the resentment. And while a part of me didn't care what he had to say, another part of me, the stronger part, wanted closure. So I texted back. Fine. One conversation. But don't expect anything from me. When I agreed to meet Daniel, I didn't do it because I missed him. I did it because I was ready to close that chapter of my life for good. We met at a quiet cafe, a place I used to love but had avoided after everything that happened. As I walked in, I spotted him immediately. He looked different. Not in the way that made me second-guess my decisions, but in the way that confirmed I had made the right choice. He was thinner, his face slightly drawn, his once meticulously styled hair now a little unkempt. But more than his appearance, it was the way he looked at me, like he was searching for something he had lost. And that's when it hit me. He had lost me. I wasn't the broken woman he had left behind in a hospital bed. I was stronger now. And nothing he could say would change that. Emma, he said the moment I sat down. His voice was softer than I remembered, as if he wasn't sure he had the right to say my name anymore. I met his gaze evenly. You said you needed to talk. So talk. He let out a slow breath, running a hand over his jaw. I don't even know where to start. I tilted my head. Try the part where you left me for someone else while I was unconscious. He flinched. Good. Let him feel it. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, he said, his voice low. I made the worst mistake of my life, Emma. He swallowed hard, his hands clasping together on the table. I was a coward. When the doctors told me you might not wake up, I panicked. And instead of being strong, instead of staying, he exhaled sharply. I ran. I watched him carefully. The old me would have clung to his words, desperate for an explanation that made sense. But now I saw them for what they were, excuses. You ran straight into someone else's arms, I said, my voice calm. And let me guess. It didn't work out. His silence was answer enough. I let out a soft, humorless laugh. That's why you're here, isn't it? Because now that she's gone, you think you can come back. His eyes snapped to mine. No, Emma, that's not, he exhaled. I know I can't fix what I did. I know I lost you. But I need you to know that I regret it. Every single day. I leaned back in my chair, folding my arms. And what do you expect me to do with that? Feel sorry for you? His face fell. No. I miss you. And I needed you to know that. The weight of his words settled between us, but they didn't hurt me the way they once would have. Because I didn't miss him. I had spent months picking up the pieces of myself, and for what? So he could show up and ask for absolution? No. He didn't get that from me. I stood up, grabbing my bag. Well, Daniel, now you know how it feels. He looked up at me, eyes filled with something I refused to acknowledge. Emma. I gave him one last look, one that made it clear there was no way back. This conversation? It's the last one we'll ever have, I said simply. I'm not angry anymore, Daniel. I don't hate you. But I also don't love you. Not even a little bit. His face crumbled. I turned and walked away. Walking out of that cafe, I felt lighter than I had in years. The past no longer had power over me. Daniel was nothing more than a memory, a lesson learned, not a wound that still bled. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready to fully embrace the future. That future, it seemed, had Noah written all over it. Since our first date, things between us had only gotten better. Unlike Daniel, Noah didn't play games. He didn't leave me questioning my worth or wondering where I stood. He showed up, consistently, wholeheartedly, and without hesitation. The night after my meeting with Daniel, Noah and I had dinner at his place. It was simple. Homemade pasta, a bottle of wine, music playing softly in the background. But it felt like home. He watched me carefully as we ate, his gaze full of quiet curiosity. "You're different tonight," he finally said, setting his fork down. I smiled. "Good different." "Definitely," he murmured. "You seem lighter. Like you let go of something heavy." I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "I saw Daniel today." His jaw tightened slightly, but he didn't interrupt. "He wanted to talk," I continued, swirling my wine glass. "He told me he regretted everything, that he missed me. And you know what?" I looked up at him, meeting his gaze. I didn't feel anything. Not anger, not sadness, nothing. Noah studied me for a long moment before his lips curved into a slow smile. "That's a good feeling, isn't it?" I exhaled, nodding. "Yeah, it really is." He leaned back in his chair, his expression softening. "I've been waiting for you to see what I've seen from the beginning." I raised an eyebrow. "And what's that?" "That you're stronger than you think," he said simply. "That you're not defined by what happened to you. And that you—" His voice lowered slightly, his fingers tracing slow patterns on the stem of his glass. "Deserve more than someone's regret. You deserve someone's whole heart." A warmth spread through me, deeper than attraction, deeper than infatuation. This was something real. I set my glass down and stood, walking toward him. He watched me, eyes flickering with something unreadable. When I reached him, I placed my hands on the arms of his chair, leaning down until our faces were just inches apart. "Noah," I murmured. "Yes." His voice was calm, but I could hear the slight hitch in his breath. I smiled, brushing my lips softly against his. "Thank you for being patient with me." His hands came up to cup my face, his touch gentle but sure. "You were always worth waiting for, Emma." And when he kissed me, really kissed me, I felt it in my bones. This wasn't like the past. This wasn't a love that needed proving or fixing or chasing. This was a love that felt right. And this time I wasn't afraid of it. After that night, things between Noah and me changed in the best way possible. There were no walls between us anymore. No ghosts of the past lingering in the shadows. No hesitation in my heart. For the first time in years, I was in love. Real love. The kind that didn't come with conditions or insecurities. The kind that made me laugh until my stomach hurt and filled every quiet moment with warmth. The kind I didn't have to fight for, because it was simply there. Noah had always been patient, always willing to give me space to heal. But now we were all in. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying hole-in-the-wall restaurants, and making spontaneous road trips to nowhere in particular. It wasn't about grand gestures or sweeping romance. It was about the little things. The morning coffees. The inside jokes. The way he pulled me close when he thought I was cold before I even had a chance to shiver. One evening, as we sat on his balcony watching the city lights, he turned to me and said, "You know, I've never met someone who's grown as much as you have in such a short time." I tilted my head. "What do you mean?" He smiled, tracing slow circles on the back of my hand. "When we first met, you carried yourself like someone who had been through hell but refused to break. Now you're not just surviving, Emma. You're thriving." I let his words sink in. Because he was right. I had spent so much time thinking that love had ruined me. That Daniel's betrayal had made me unlovable. That I would never be able to trust again. But now, sitting there with Noah, feeling the steady warmth of his presence, I realized something. I had been wrong. Love hadn't broken me. The wrong person had. And love, the right love, was healing me in ways I never thought possible. I turned to Noah, meeting his gaze. "You want to know the truth?" His eyes softened. "Always." I exhaled. "I was terrified of falling for you. Because the last time I let myself love someone, it destroyed me." He didn't flinch, didn't pull away. He simply squeezed my hand, his voice steady. "And now?" I smiled. "Now I'm not afraid anymore." His breath hitched slightly, and in that moment I knew that he felt it too. This was something real. Something worth holding on to. And when he pulled me into his arms, pressing his lips softly against my forehead, I closed my eyes, letting myself finally, fully, completely fall. Because this time I wasn't falling into heartbreak. I was falling into something real. Falling in love with Noah wasn't a sudden, dramatic revelation. It was a quiet certainty that grew stronger every day. I didn't wake up one morning with the realization that I loved him. Instead, it was in the small, everyday moments that I saw it so clearly. Like when he made me tea before bed because he knew I had trouble sleeping. Or the way he always walked on the side of the sidewalk closest to the road, as if protecting me was instinctive. Or how he looked at me, not as someone who had been broken but as someone who had rebuilt herself. One evening after dinner at his place, we sat on his couch, my legs curled under me as he absent-mindedly ran his fingers through my hair. "You ever think about what's next?" he asked softly. I glanced up at him. "What do you mean?" His lips quirked in that familiar, teasing way. "For us," I swallowed, my heart stuttering. "I think about it," I admitted. "But I guess I'm still getting used to the idea of a future that isn't just about me." Noah's fingers traced lazy circles on my arm. "I get that. You spent so long fighting to stand on your own that it probably feels strange to let someone stand with you." I nodded. "It does. But it's not a bad strange." His eyes softened. "Good." A comfortable silence settled between us, but I could feel something shifting, like we were on the edge of something big. And then, almost as if the universe wanted to test my certainty, Daniel called. I stared at my phone, his name flashing on the screen. Bo saw it too. He didn't react, didn't tense up or pry. He simply waited, his gaze steady on mine. I let the phone ring. Then I blocked the number. No hesitation. No second thoughts. I set the phone down, exhaling as a weight I hadn't even realized I was carrying lifted off my chest. When I looked up, Noah was watching me with a small, knowing smile. "Felt good, didn't it?" he murmured. I let out a breathless laugh. "Better than I expected." He brushed his knuckles along my cheek, his touch feather-light. "I'm proud of you." And in that moment it hit me, this was what love was supposed to feel like. Not painful. Not uncertain. Not like a battle I had to fight just to be chosen. It was peace. It was safety. It was home. I reached for his hand, intertwining my fingers with his. "I love you, Noah." His eyes widened slightly, like he hadn't expected me to say it first. But then his smile, God, that smile. "I love you too, Emma." No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just love. Saying I love you to Noah wasn't the end of my journey. It was the beginning of something new. Something I never thought I'd have again. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. I wasn't afraid. There were no shadows of doubt, no whispers of past betrayals holding me back. What I had with Noah was real, and I knew, deep in my bones, that I was exactly where I was meant to be. A few weeks after that night, we took a weekend trip to a quiet cabin by the lake. It wasn't some extravagant getaway, but it was perfect. Just us, no distractions. No reminders of the past. One evening, as we sat by the water, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Noah exhaled a quiet breath. "I have a question," he said, his voice steady but soft. I glanced at him, amused. "That sounds serious." He chuckled. "It is. Kind of." I turned fully to face him. "Hey, I'm listening." He hesitated for a second, as if choosing his words carefully. Then he looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw everything in his eyes. "Do you still want to travel alone?" I blinked. "What?" He gave me a small smile. "That night, on our first date, you said you always wanted to just pack your bags and go somewhere by yourself. Do you still feel that way?" I thought about it. Once that dream had been about freedom. About proving to myself that I didn't need anyone, that I was strong enough to stand on my own. But now. I smiled, shaking my head. "No. I still want to travel, but..." I reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "I think I'd rather do it with you." His fingers tightened around mine. "Good," he murmured. "Because I've been thinking about taking some time off work. Maybe a long trip. Just the two of us." I laughed softly. "Are you asking me to run away with you?" He smirked. "I'm asking you to start our own adventure." I stared at him, warmth spreading through me like sunlight after a storm. This was my new beginning. Not one built on revenge or proving something to anyone, but one built on love. Real, steady, unwavering love. I leaned in, pressing my forehead against his. "Let's do it." He grinned. Yeah. And just like that, the past was truly behind me. No more ghosts. No more pain. Just us. just a future I never thought I'd have, but now I wouldn't trade for anything.